Today I'm going to show you guys how you can create a full-fledged calculator inside of Python. And I just realized that my camera is a bit wonky, or is it? No, it's not. I just have to kind of center it. Oh. It could be worse. Anyhow, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a full-fledged calculator as I promised. So to do that, it's actually somewhat simple, somewhat complicated. Let me show you how it's done. So first we're going to define some sort of user input. To get user input within Python, it's really easy. Let me just first demonstrate how user input works so we know what we're working with. Also one more thing, we're going to use loops and if statements in this one because I don't want to deal with a ton of stuff that we do not need to use. So yeah, we're going to pretty much use everything we've learned to create this application. I'm just looking at my notes here because it's not that big of a deal, but it does make a bit of a difference. I just brought up my notes a little bit higher so I know where they are. Good, so to do that we're going to first, I'll explain to user input as soon as we get there. So first we're going to define a ex variable, which will be our exit variable that will be equal to 0. Sorry. This will be used to pretty much determine if the user has decided to exit our application or not. So nothing that difficult. And now we're going to go into the section with user input. To get input from the user, it's really easy. All we have to do is we're going to create x variable that will be equal to input, and the input will have the string, so the thing that we're going to ask our user to do. So we're going to ask him, hey, enter the first number. And yeah, that's that. Now what we can do is we can copy this section of code and we can paste it in, but change this to y, and we're going to ask them to enter the second number. There we go, that's user input, but these numbers wouldn't work in our calculator because they are not integers, you know, they are not a form of a number that we can read. To do that, we're going to define two new variables which will be used. So we're going to define a num variable, and we're going to convert it into we're going to convert our x variable, which is right here, to an integer. That's really easy to do. You just type in int, do x, and that's it. So we've just converted our x variable into a integer and stored it as a num variable. What I could do is copy this, change this to num1 so that it's a bit easier to distinguish, and change this to y so that we get the number that's inside of y and store it as an integer for our num1 variable. So that's user inputs pretty much in a nutshell. But we're going to play around with this a little more. So now we're going to create a while loop. The reason why we want to have a while loop is we want to create an app that will keep on running until the user decides to exit our application. Well, let's do that. Let's type in while, and let's do while ex is not equal to 1. That's what that means, the thing I just typed in. The exclamation point pretty much says, hey, keep me in the loop until I exit, which is what we want. Next we're going to define a menu. To create a menu, we're going to again use our input. So I'm going to define a variable for our menu. I know, terrible names. And let's take it as a form of input. And this is going to take a little while, so I'm just gonna copy it from my notes here because I had this prepared from my notes. And yoink. And pretty much what this does is it asks the user to pick an operation, then it moves it by one line down, and then it writes out 0 for new numbers, which I'm going to show you how we can achieve this. Then one line down for sum, one line down for sub, one line down for multiplication, and one line down for division, then one more line down for exiting the app, and then your pick, which is where the magic pretty much happens. This is where you type in what you want to do. Next, we're going to convert what the user types in into an integer so that our if statements work, which is what we're going to use to give it some form of logic to make our menu work, you know, because it wouldn't be a menu if it didn't work. To do that, we're going to create a SVW for switch, because switches aren't normally there, but we have to improvise. And we're going to type out int a, and that's it. So that's how we've converted the value that's being typed in from our menu into an integer. Now here is where the magic happens. So with this, we've got our menu input pretty much done. Now we have to add some sort of logic to our menu. To do that, we're going to use if statements. First, we want to create the new numbers one. Well, that's really easy. All we do is we do if SW equals exactly 0, then we have to indent this because Python works like this, and we're going to just, you know, copy this, yoink, and we need to indent it on the same level, so make sure you get it at the same level, not even one line down, because as you can see, let me just demonstrate on the last one, it will create as a subsection of this, but we do not want this. We want this to be an entire subsection by itself. See? That's what it should do in Notepad++ if you click this minus sign here. It should hide the entire logic here, which is what we want. Next, we're going to figure out a way of how we're going to do addition. To do addition in Python, we're going to create another variable. This variable will store the result of our calculations. So now we're going to use the elif statement, and we're going to do if elif. So elif SW equals 1. So essentially, if the user picks the option 1, which is the sum of both of our numbers, then we're going to do that res equals num plus num1, and then we're going to write it out. So we're going to use print, and we're going to, now this is important, we need to convert the numbers into strings, because printing out a certain string so that we don't have to rewrite it all the time, we're just going to do str, and we're going to convert our first variable to a string, and then we're going to do a plus sign, then the double quotes. So we're just essentially chaining strings together, as I showed you in the very first video. And we're going to add a plus sign here, then another plus sign here, and we're going to do another string, and we're going to convert our num1 variable to a string, then we're going to do the double quotes again, we're going to do the equal one, then do the last plus sign here, and do the rest of this application, which I totally goofed up, so str, and this will be the rest. There we go. So this is essentially how the first logic is being done. Now all we have to do is just copy this about 4 times, or 3 times actually. So that's 1, 2, and 3. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, so we're going to change these to 2, then 3, and then 4. And I'm going to then change everything else. Let me just do this thing here. And we have to add another LV, but this one will be for exiting the app. So let me talk about this one first, because it's much easier to do. So if LV is 5, so if the user picks option 5, which is exiting the app, we're going to do this. We're going to set our EX variable to be equal to 1, because if you remember, if it's not equal to 1, it will stay in the loop. If it's equal to 1, it will exit the loop, which is what we want, obviously. And now on to the rest. So this one has to be subtraction. Oh, no. Subtraction, multiplication, multiplication, and this one has to be division, and here we're going to do division. Now one of the nicer things is, also one more thing, and if nothing was picked, we're just going to do the else statement here, and we're going to print out, no operation selected, ... and that's pretty much it for our application in just 32 lines of code. It could be less if I didn't do this stupid spacing, but this is pretty much it. That's our entire application written in pretty much 32 lines of code, and it's a full-fledged calculator, so let's see if it works. Also, I had to mention here, so the reason why we're converting these to strings is that this num variable is actually integer and it cannot be implicitly converted, so Python is not that advanced, you know, to convert our string or integers into strings and vice versa, so you know, that's what you have to deal with. And the reason why we put into a while loop is we want to keep the user on asking like, hey, I want you to pick another operation and another one and another one, and it will spit out the numbers for the user. So let's see if it does work actually. So I have this open here, and let's do this thing right here, which is our full calculator.py, which is the name of the application, and it asks us for the first number. So what do? We do 5, and let's do 2. And now it asks us to pick an operation. Let's do the sum. 5 plus 2 equals 7. I don't think you guys can see that. I think you should be able to see it now. Here, let me just resize this a little bit more. Might have been a bit too much, but okay, there we go. That's perfect, I guess. So as you can see, 5 plus 2 equals 7 because we picked the sum. Let's do subtraction. 5 minus 2 equals 3, so that works. Let's do multiplication. 5 times 2 equals 10. I could have separated this, but you know, it's a simple calculator. You just have to look for it if you know where to look for it. Let's do division. One thing you may have noticed now is that it didn't throw up an error. I mean, in C# it didn't do as well, but here we have it already in decimals converted, so Python is really neat with that. Let's do... what is another fairly neat number to do? 1 and 3 is a pretty good one. So let's pick new numbers. To do that, we just picked option 0. First number will be 1. Second number will be 3. And we have new numbers. So it now asks us for another operation. Let's do sum. And you might notice that our numbers have changed. 1 plus 3 equals 4. Why is that? As you can see, we are changing the exact same variables inside of our code here. So that's what we want. We just want to be changed. Bear in mind, the numbers change because of we call the same variables. If I were to change these to a different variable, it wouldn't work. And you can just see my hair, which is just flippin' amazing. So 1 plus 3 equals 4. Let's do subtraction. 1 minus 3 equals minus 2. You know, makes sense. Let's do 3. 1 times 3 is 3, obviously. And let's do division. 1 divided by 3 is 0.33333 blah 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 blah. So it works. That's our full-fledged calculator. And if I press 5, it will exit the application. And that's it. That's a full-fledged calculator. I figured I might mention this one because it is somewhat important. So yeah, make sure to leave a like if you liked the video. The code will be available in the description below. And yeah, make sure to stay safe, have fun, and share it around if you can.